Let me introduce myself before I tell you how I nearly got my entire crew killed. The name's Jaxel Morbin, Senior Cartographer for the Centrion Federation's Stellar Mapping Division. That's a fancy way of saying I fly around charting stars so other people don't get lost and die in the cold vacuum of space. You're welcome. For 27 cycles, I've been mapping every corner of this spiral arm. Gas giants, asteroid belts, neutron stars, I've cataloged them all with enough precision to make my former Academy instructors weep with joy. My maps are works of art, scientifically accurate, meticulously detailed works of art. Jaxel, you're the best in the business, my colleagues always say. Then they usually ask to borrow credits or for me to cover their shift. But they're right about one thing. I am the best. Which is exactly why what I'm about to tell you makes absolutely no sense. There's a section of our galaxy, approximately 1/30th of the total mapped space, that doesn't exist on any official chart. Oh, we know it's there. We can detect its stars, measure its radiation, and track its movement. But if you pull up any navigation system in the 17 United Galactic civilizations and look for it, you'll find nothing but a blank zone surrounded by pulsing red warning symbols. Human space. The rest of the galaxy is an open book. From the crystallized methane plains of Nix 9 to the plasma storms of the Vermilion Expanse, every planet, moon, and space station is meticulously documented. Every civilization's territory is color-coded, with clear boundaries and diplomatic contact protocols. But human space? That's just a void with a single notation, no entry by order of the Galactic Council. What's even more bizarre, nobody questions it. Not the politicians, not the military, not even my fellow cartographers. When I bring it up at professional conferences, colleagues suddenly remember urgent appointments elsewhere. My supervisor once threatened to revoke my mapping license when I submitted a proposal to chart the human border. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, Morbin, she said, her facial tentacles twitching nervously. Some boundaries aren't meant to be crossed. But here's the thing about us cartographers. We hate blank spaces. They mock us from our displays, taunting us with their emptiness. And the biggest blank space in the galaxy was calling my name. So I decided to find out why the maps end at human space, and why no one dares to ask why. It was on the 4th day of the celestial equinox celebration, while everyone else was busy getting intoxicated on fermented lupa nectar, that Admiral Prell summoned me to her office. Now, getting called to see the Admiral during a mandatory holiday is like being asked to dance with a Zorlax beast. It could be an honor, or it could be the last thing you ever do. Morbin, she said as soon as the pneumatic doors sealed behind me. Her scales flashed a nervous blue-green pattern I'd never seen before. You've been making noise about human territory again. I straightened my posture. With all due respect, Admiral, it's absurd that in an age where we can chart quantum fluctuations in black holes, we've left an entire section of the galaxy undocumented. Admiral Prell's third eye narrowed. And that's exactly why you're getting your wish. Wait. What? What? Why? What so? The Council has reluctantly approved a reconnaissance mission to the human border. Very limited, very quiet, very deniable if things go wrong. She slid a data crystal across her desk. You've been selected to lead it. Me. But I'm just a senior cartographer with an irritating inability to leave well enough alone, she finished. Plus, you're the only one who volunteered. Everyone else had the sense to stay quiet. I picked up the crystal, trying to hide my excitement. What exactly am I looking for? Answers, Morbin. But be careful what questions you ask. The Admiral's voice dropped to a whisper. The last 3 expeditions that went near human space never returned. Not a single transmission. Not a distress beacon. Nothing. Then why? Because the uncertainty is becoming problematic for interstellar commerce. And because your persistence has convinced certain council members that perhaps our policy of willful ignorance has outlived its usefulness. She leaned forward. But understand this. If you cross into their territory, if you provoke them in any way, the Centurion Federation will disavow all knowledge of your mission. You'll be on your own. I left the Admiral's office with the mission parameters and 48 hours to assemble a crew crazy enough to join me. Finding the right ship was easy. My research vessel, the Curious Doubt, was small, fast, and equipped with the latest scanning technology. Finding people willing to board it, that was another matter entirely. In the end, I managed to cobble together the strangest crew in Federation history. Trill Nexaro, my pilot, 6 arms, lightning reflexes, and a gambling problem that had left her with nothing but debts and a desperate need for the hazard pay I was offering. Vanks, our xenobiologist. A gelatinous blob contained in a hovering environmental suit who communicated through color pulses and had an unhealthy obsession with dangerous life forms. Chorus Fallmark, security chief. Former military, discharged under circumstances he refused to discuss. His metal exoskeleton hummed whenever he got nervous, which was often. And finally Lumi Teresh, our linguist and communications specialist. A brilliant polyglot from the bioluminescent rainforests of Elizar Prime, who claimed she could decode any language after hearing just 3 sentences. On departure day, a crowd gathered at the spaceport. Not to wish us luck, but to place bets on whether we'd return. Several of my colleagues approached with awkward expressions. "You know the superstition, right?" one whispered. "Humans can read minds. They know you're coming before you even decide to go." "That's ridiculous," I replied, checking pre-flight diagnostics. "Maybe," said another, "but explain why no probe ever sends back images of their ships or planets. They just stop transmitting the moment they should capture something." I ignored their warnings, their crossed tentacles for luck, their mournful glances. Within the hour, the Curious Doubt broke atmosphere, its course set for the edge of known space and beyond that, into the mysterious realm that belonged to the creatures called humans. The Curious Doubt sliced through the starry void, passing from one alien territory to another. The Moravian expanse with its rainbow nebulae gave way to the crowded shipping lanes of the Taxon Collective. We skirted the edge of Q-Lathi space, where the sentient plant species cultivated asteroid gardens in geometric patterns. Each civilization had its own unique architecture, technology, and social norms. But they all shared one thing in common, a profound, almost primal fear of humans. Refueling denied, came the curt response from the hegemony of Vril Station Master when our intended course came up on their scanners. "Adjust your trajectory away from human space or leave our sector immediately." This wasn't an isolated incident. At each port, each trading hub, each diplomatic outpost, the reaction was the same: first disbelief, then fear, then outright hostility. "You're doing what?" laughed a 4-armed bartender at our last refueling stop, his laughter quickly dying when he realized we were serious. "Listen, friend, you seem like a decent sort. Turn around. The pay isn't worth it." "The humans have weapons that can collapse stars," whispered a scaly merchant, glancing nervously over her shoulder. My cousin's shipmate saw it happen. An entire system, gone in seconds. Chorus Fallmark, our security chief, compiled a database of rumors. They can survive in the vacuum of space without protection. Their bodies regenerate from any injury. They don't sleep. Ever. They can lift 10 times their own weight. They feel no pain. They can see through solid objects. Each story sounded more absurd than the last. But as we got closer to the boundary, the stories became more specific, more consistent, and much more terrifying. Lumi Teresh, our linguist, grew increasingly withdrawn as she analyzed communication patterns around human space. "There's something odd," she said one night, her skin glowing a worried purple. "Every species has a different word for humans, but the root etymology is the same in over 300 languages. It translates roughly to the ones who must not be challenged. Thanks, our xenobiologist pulsed an anxious yellow. Evolutionary implications suggest converging threat responses across diverse biological systems. Conclusion: common predator. The tension aboard the Curious Doubt grew with each passing day. Trilnexaro's 6 hands twitched constantly at the controls. Chorus's exoskeleton emitted a continuous low hum. Even I found myself checking and rechecking our shields, our cloaking systems, our escape pods. And then, just as our nerves were stretched to breaking point, the navigation console beeped. We had reached the edge of charted space. Ahead lay a vast emptiness on our maps, and somewhere within it, the mysterious realm of humanity. Final approach, announced Trill, her voice barely above a whisper. Boundary crossing in 3 standard hours. None of us slept that night. 2 hours before we were scheduled to cross the boundary, our sensors detected something unexpected: a ship, drifting on minimal power, trailing plasma from multiple hull breaches. It was a Vexidian cruiser, a design I recognized from the prestigious Galactic merchant fleet. Top of the line, nearly indestructible, and certainly not something that should look like it had been used for target practice. Life signs? I asked. Hanks's environmental suit hovered closer to the scanner. Affirmative. 18 survivors. Critical life support status. Despite our mission parameters explicitly stating we avoid complications, I couldn't just leave them. Trill, bring us alongside. Chorus, prep the emergency docking procedure. The Vexidian captain was barely conscious when we brought him aboard. His chitinous exoskeleton was cracked in multiple places, oozing bioluminescent fluid that stained our medical bay floor. His crew was in even worse shape. "You're heading toward human space," he rasped when he regained consciousness, compound eyes widening in alarm. "Turn back. For the love of the eternal nebula, turn back." "What happened to your ship?" I asked. The captain's antennae trembled. "We miscalculated. Our navigational system malfunctioned. We crossed 12 kilometers into their territory." He started clicking rapidly, a sound my translator identified as hysterical laughter. 12 kilometers. Do you know how vast space is? 12 kilometers is nothing. "What did they do?" Chorus asked, his exoskeleton humming at an almost painful frequency. "They sent a warning. Just words on our communication system. You have entered restricted space. Please turn around." So polite. The captain's clicking grew more frantic. Our security officer panicked, thought it was a trick. He fired a warning shot of our own. Just one, just to show we were armed. The captain reached out with a trembling claw and grabbed my arm. 3 of their ships appeared out of nowhere. Nowhere. Our sensors showed empty space, and then they were just there. He fumbled with a data chip embedded in his exoskeleton and pressed it into my hand. "See for yourself. But please get us away from here." Later, after we'd transferred the Vexidians to our medical bay and set course to rendezvous with a Federation medical frigate, I reviewed the footage with my crew. The recording was damaged, filled with static and data corruption, but what we could see was enough to silence the entire room. 3 sleek vessels, midnight black against the stars, moving with impossible precision. The Vexidian cruiser 4 times their size and armed with enough firepower to level a small moon fired first. Its energy beams dissipated harmlessly against the human ships. What happened next defied explanation. No visible weapons fired. No torpedoes launched. The human ships simply remained in formation. And the Vexidian cruiser began to tear itself apart, systems failing, hull plates shearing off as if pulled by invisible hands. The entire encounter lasted less than 40 seconds. They could have destroyed us completely, the Vexidian captain had told me. But they didn't. They just broke us enough to make sure we couldn't follow. Then their commander opened a direct channel and apologized for the inconvenience. His compound eyes had stared blankly at the ceiling. Apologized. like they'd accidentally stepped on our foot at a social gathering. The footage ended with the human ships vanishing as inexplicably as they had appeared. Silence hung in our briefing room until Trill Nexaro stood up. "I'm out," she said flatly, all 6 hands making the sign against evil. "My contract allows me to refuse suicidal assignments. This qualifies." "We haven't even crossed the boundary yet," I argued. "And I won't be there when you do." She walked toward the door. "I have gambling debts, Jaxel, not a death wish." No one tried to stop her. When we reached the medical frigate 3 hours later, Trill transferred off with the injured Vexidians. We watched her go in silence, our crew now down to 4. "Anyone else?" I asked, looking around the bridge. No one spoke, but their fear was palpable. Even I had to admit that what we'd witnessed had shaken my confidence. But turning back now wasn't an option. Not for me. "Chorus," I said, "you're our pilot now. Set course for the boundary." With Trill gone, our approach to the human boundary was more cautious. Chorus lacked her natural talent at the helm, but what he lacked in finesse, he made up for in methodical precision. We dropped out of FTL travel at a safe distance, just beyond the point where the Vexidian cruiser had encountered trouble. "There," Lumi said, pointing to the main view screen. "Do you see them?" At first I didn't. Space looked like, well, space. Endless darkness punctuated by distant stars. But then our sensors adjusted, highlighting what would have been invisible to the naked eye. A series of small devices positioned in a perfect line stretching as far as our sensors could detect in either direction. "Boundary markers," I murmured, zooming in. They were elegant in their simplicity, small black spheres, each no larger than my fist, emitting no detectable energy signature. And how can they be powered? Vanks pulsed curiously, his gelatinous form pressing against his containment suit as he leaned toward the scanner. "No radiation, no heat, no electromagnetic fields." "Unknown technology," Chorus muttered, his exoskeleton humming louder. "Just like the Vexidian footage. They have capabilities we don't understand." As we drifted closer, the communication console suddenly activated. A calm, pleasant voice filled the bridge. "Attention approaching vessel. You are nearing the boundary of human protective zone. This automated message serves as official notification under Galactic Treaty Protocol 7 billion. Please acknowledge receipt and state your intentions." Lumi's skin flashed a startled blue. "The message is being broadcast in all 17 official languages of the Galactic Council. Perfect dialect and syntax in each." I took a deep breath and opened a channel. "This is Senior Cartographer Jaxel Morbin of the Centrion Federation vessel Curious Doubt. We acknowledge your notification. Our mission is scientific and cartographic in nature." The response was immediate. "Thank you for your prompt reply, Cartographer Morbin. Please be advised that crossing into human protective zone requires prior authorization. Unauthorized entry may result in defensive measures. If you wish to request permission to enter, please use frequency 957.331 to submit formal application." The chorus shifted uncomfortably. "That's it? Just apply for permission? After what we saw happen to that Vexidian ship?" "Perhaps they only attack when threatened," Lumi suggested, her bioluminescence pulsing with uncertainty. The Vexidian captain admitted they fired first. Vanks's environmental suit bobbed in what I'd come to recognize as his version of a nervous head shake. Unpredictable response patterns, high risk, insufficient data for survival probability calculation. The 4 of us gathered in the conference room to debate our options. The argument grew heated. "We've come this far," I insisted. "We can't turn back now." "Did you not see what happened to that cruiser?" Chorus countered, the hum of his exoskeleton now a constant, anxious whine. "They tore it apart without even firing a weapon." Lumi's skin had settled into a thoughtful purple. "What if we send probes first? Keep the curious doubt at a safe distance. It was a sensible compromise. We had 8 advanced reconnaissance probes aboard small, unmanned devices packed with sensors and cameras. They could cross the boundary while we remained safely on this side. The decision was unanimous. We would send 2 probes, one openly transmitting its scientific purpose, the other running silent with passive sensors only. The deployment went smoothly. Both probes crossed the boundary line formed by the black markers. The transmitting probe announced itself as it went. The silent one followed, its stealth systems making it virtually undetectable to standard sensors. For 17 minutes, everything proceeded according to plan. The transmitting probe sent back streams of data standard cosmic readings, nothing unusual. The stealth probe followed its programmed course without incident. Then, simultaneously, both probe signals terminated. What happened? I demanded. Did they detect them? Destroy them? Chorus frantically worked the sensor controls. No energy discharges detected. No signs of weapons fire. They just stopped transmitting. Just as I was about to order a full retreat, the communication console chimed. The voice that filled our bridge was different from the automated message warmer, with an undercurrent of amusement. Curious doubt, this is Commander Mackenzie of Human Border Security. We've collected your probes for examination. Don't worry, we'll return them shortly. In the meantime, would you care to explain why one was announcing itself while the other was sneaking in? Well, I said, my voice cracking slightly as I addressed Commander Mackenzie, scientific curiosity often requires multiple methodologies. A pause. Then actual laughter came through our comm system. That's one way of putting it, Cartographer Morbin. Your honesty is refreshing. Most visitors try to deny the stealth probe belongs to them. Most visitors? There were others who had survived crossing the boundary? Your probes are being analyzed, but we'll return them intact, Commander Mackenzie continued. In the meantime, since you've clearly gone to great lengths to study us, perhaps you'd like to do so properly? We have a research station orbiting the 7th planet of the Proxima system. You're welcome to dock there and meet face to face. The communication cut off, leaving us in stunned silence. It's a trap, Chorus said immediately, his exoskeleton now humming so loudly I could feel the vibration through the deck plates. They'll dissect us like we're specimens. Lumi's skin pulsed between anxious yellow and curious green. But they returned the Vexidian ship damaged, yes, but they allowed the crew to live. And the commander seemed amused, not hostile. Insufficient data for risk assessment, Vanks bubbled inside his suit. Recommend further observation from safe distance. I stared at the boundary markers on our display. Everything I'd been taught about proper scientific exploration said we should gather more data before proceeding. But no probe we could send would tell us what I really wanted to know, why the humans isolated themselves, and why the rest of the galaxy feared them. We'll put it to a vote, I decided, all in favor of accepting the invitation. My hand went up. After a moment's hesitation, Lumi's followed. Opposed? Chorus raised his hand immediately. Vanks's environmental suit bobbed in agreement. 2 against 2. As expedition leader, the tie-breaking vote was mine and I'd already shown my hand. We accept, I told the crew, but with precautions. Chorus, program the ship to broadcast all our sensor data back to Centrion space every 30 seconds. If something happens to us, at least the Federation will know what we found. The following 6 hours were the longest of my life. We crossed the boundary line, our sensors immediately registering bizarre readings. Spatial distortions appeared and vanished. Energy signatures flared and faded with no apparent source. Our navigation system kept insisting we were simultaneously in 3 different locations. It's like reality itself is fluid here, Lumi whispered, her skin now a deep, fascinated purple as she watched the readings. What was strangest was the silence. No patrol ships intercepted us. No further communications came from Commander Mackenzie. We proceeded unimpeded toward the coordinates that had been transmitted to our navigation system. "This makes no sense," Chorus growled, checking our defensive systems for the 100th time. "The most feared species in the galaxy just invites us to drop by for a visit? Why?" "Perhaps they're not what we think they are," Lumi suggested. "Perhaps the stories are exaggerated." "Or perhaps," I said, watching as a massive structure began to materialize on our sensors, "we're about to find out the truth." The human research station came into view, and all of us fell silent. It was enormous, a sprawling complex of interconnected modules and docking arms that dwarfed anything in Federation space. But it wasn't its size that stunned us. It was the hundreds of alien ships docked there, ships from every corner of the galaxy, ships from species that were supposed to be mortal enemies, ships that, according to every official record, should never have been in human space. "What in the name of the 7 moons is going on here?" Chorus whispered. The comm system crackled to life. "Curious doubt, this is Proxima Station Control. We've assigned you Docking Bay 47C. Commander Mackenzie will meet you there. Welcome to human space, gentle beings." I looked at my crew, their faces showing the same mixture of fear and fascination I felt. "Last chance to turn around," I said. No one spoke. No one moved. I opened the channel. "Proxima Station Control, this is Curious Doubt. We accept your docking assignment. And thank you for the welcome." Docking with Proxima Station defied every principle of physics I'd studied at the Academy. Our ship approached what appeared to be solid metal, only for the surface to ripple like water and admit us into a cavernous bay that should not have fit within the station's observed dimensions. "Spatial manipulation technology," Vanks pulsed excitedly, his gelatinous form pressing against his containment suit as we disembarked. "Theoretical only, mathematically proven impossible." Yet here we stood, in a docking bay that contained vessels from at least 17 different civilizations, many of which were officially at war with each other outside human space. Commander Mackenzie met us at the airlock. She was not what I expected. Smaller than the fearsome warriors of legend, with light brown skin and curly black hair pulled back in a simple style. Her uniform bore no obvious weapons or armor. Most disconcertingly, she smiled, displaying rows of flat white teeth that somehow seemed more threatening than any predator's fangs. "Welcome to Proxima Station," she said cheerfully, as if greeting old friends rather than aliens who had sent spy probes into her territory. "Sorry about confiscating your devices. Standard protocol. Here they are, good as new." She handed me a container with our probes, completely intact. Chorus scanned them suspiciously. "You didn't disable their recording functions?" Commander Mackenzie laughed. "Why would we? You came to learn about us. We're not going to get in the way of that." She led us through corridors that bent in ways corridors shouldn't. Vast observation windows, showing environments that couldn't possibly exist side by side, tropical gardens adjacent to frozen tundra, aquatic habitats next to desert biomes. Aliens of all descriptions moved about freely, many nodding respectfully to our human guide. "This station serves as a neutral meeting ground," Commander Mackenzie explained, waving casually at what appeared to be a gaseous life form floating in a specialized containment field. "Embassy, trading post, scientific collaboration center. We host about 40,000 non-human visitors at any given time." But Lumi's skin flashed confusion. "The galaxy believes human space is forbidden. Deadly. How is this possible?" Our guide's expression turned thoughtful. "It's complicated. Let's just say we find it useful to maintain certain misconceptions." We passed through a doorway and found ourselves suddenly standing in what appeared to be open space, stars all around us, yet we were breathing normally, standing on nothing. "In the observation deck," Commander Mackenzie said, noting our shock with obvious amusement. "Gravity fields and atmospheric barriers. Nothing fancy." Nothing fancy. The technology to stand in vacuum without protection was nothing fancy to them. Chorus reached out tentatively, his hand stopping against an invisible barrier beyond which stars twinkled. This is beyond anything the Federation has even theorized. "Oh, this is just the tourist stuff," our guide said with a dismissive wave. "Wait until you see the research labs." Looking around at the impossible architecture, the casual disregard for what I had always believed were universal constants, I finally began to understand. The humans hadn't isolated themselves out of fear or hostility. They had done it out of courtesy to avoid disrupting galactic civilization with technologies the rest of us weren't ready for. We weren't being kept out. They were keeping themselves in. After the tour, Commander Mackenzie invited me to her office, while my crew continued exploring the station under escort. Her office was surprisingly modest, a view screen showing Earth, a few physical books, an archaic technology I'd only seen in museums, and a small plant with delicate purple flowers. "I'm Admiral Talia Blackwood, actually," she said, setting aside 2 cups of steaming liquid. "The Commander bit is just what we use for first contacts. Less intimidating." I stared at her. "You're the head of human space defense? And you personally met with us?" She smiled, sipping her drink. "We find it's better to meet visitors face to face. It helps dispel some of the more ridiculous rumors." "Like humans being able to read minds?" "Oh, we can do that," she said casually. "But it's considered incredibly rude. Like eavesdropping on a private conversation." My jaw dropped. She laughed at my expression. "Jaxel, let me be direct. Humanity is unique in the galaxy. We evolved in an environment that would kill most sentient species. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, dangerous radiation levels, aggressive predators. Earth is a death trap by galactic standards." She leaned forward. "What other species see as supernatural abilities or just adaptations? We can repair our bodies from devastating injuries. We can function without sleep for days. We can survive in environments that would kill most galactic citizens instantly. But why the secrecy? Why let the galaxy believe humans are monsters to be feared?" Admiral Blackwood's expression turned serious. "Because we are dangerous, Jaxel. Not by choice, but by nature. We're the youngest spacefaring species in the galaxy, barely 1,000 years into our interstellar phase. Yet we've already developed technologies that took other species 10,000 years to discover." She gestured to the view screen, which now showed a historical image of early human space exploration primitive vessels that looked like they'd fall apart at the seams. "From those first rockets to faster-than-light travel took us less than 300 years. We learn fast, we adapt faster, and most concerning to the Galactic Council, we fight like nothing else in known space." "The Galactic Council knows about all this?" I asked, stunned. "Of course. The boundary wasn't created to keep aliens out. It was created to keep us in until we mature enough to join galactic society without accidentally dominating it. The fear, the mystery, the blank space on the maps, it's all by design. Or design." I sat back, processing this revelation. So the most dangerous species in the galaxy voluntarily quarantined itself? Admiral Blackwood nodded. "For the good of everyone, including ourselves." Our research vessel departed Proxima Station 3 days later, loaded with more data than our systems could properly catalog. As we prepared to cross back over the boundary, I sat alone in my quarters, struggling with the most important decision of my career: what to actually report back to the Centrion Federation. The truth was both simpler and more complicated than anyone could have imagined. Humans weren't monsters lurking in the darkness of uncharted space. They were precisely the opposite, a species so advanced they had chosen restraint over dominance, isolation over conquest. Distortion field disengaged. Crossing boundary in 5 minutes, Chorus announced over the intercom. I stared at the preliminary report on my screen. The Federation had sent me to fill in the blank spot on our maps, to solve the mystery of why galactic society feared human space. I now had the answer, but sharing it could unravel the delicate balance the humans had established. If the galaxy learned that humanity's self-imposed exile was voluntary, that the fearsome reputation was largely theater, how long before some ambitious species tested their boundaries? How long before humanity's genuine military capabilities were provoked? Admiral Blackwood had shown me simulations of what an actual human military response would look like. The results were sobering. "What will you tell them?" Lumi asked from the doorway, her skin pulsing a gentle, questioning blue. "That some boundaries exist for a reason," I replied. "That the humans are exactly as powerful as the rumors suggest, but not hostile unless provoked. That the blank space on our maps should remain blank, not out of fear, but out of respect." She nodded, satisfied. "They're watching us, you know, making sure we keep our word." I smiled. "I know." What I didn't tell her, what I couldn't tell her, was what Admiral Blackwood had whispered to me during our final handshake. "We appreciate your discretion, Cartographer Morbin. As a precaution, we've made some minor adjustments to your crew's memories. Nothing severe, just subtle modifications to ensure certain sensitive details remain confidential. You'll notice the difference only if you look for it." I had been horrified at first, until she continued. "Your memories are untouched. We need someone to remember the whole truth. Someone to understand why that blank space on the map matters." As we passed back across the boundary into known space, I looked at my loyal crew, blissfully unaware that their recollections had been gently altered. I looked at the empty region behind us that contained wonders and terrors beyond imagination. And for the first time since accepting this mission, I understood the wisdom of leaving some questions unanswered. The galactic map ends at human space, and that's exactly as it should be.